Hello, this is Leela Viss, and I am here with a good friend named Grace Lee. And we met back in Disney World a couple of years ago.
That's right.
Of all places, it was a great conference there at the MTNA conference. And she invited me to lunch because she wanted to tell me about an app that she was creating. And she wanted my input on it, especially because it was going to be based around pitch reading. And so I gave her my 2 cents worth, and that being naming landmarks around the keyboard. So I'm going to share my screen just so you can see what I mean by that. You know, this is a roadmap, really, the grand staff. And I think the grand staff is probably, it's intimidating to everyone, to anyone who's ever going to learn about reading music. Not even just the little guys, but the big students too. My adult students have issues with it as well. So coming up with names for everything really has helped my students, and it's really helped my students as we've been dealing with online lessons. Because if they're on a C and I'll say, oh, wait a minute, is that cloud C? And you know, they'll be on face C, and oh yeah, that's right, I got to be on cloud C instead. And so we've got a name for these pitches, and it's just like having a name for your friends. And once you can name them, then you want to recognize them every day that you see them. And that's really what pitch reading is all about. So I'll stop sharing my screen and come back to Grace here. Grace took that idea, which I'm so thankful for, and morphed it into a fantastic app called NoteQuest. And you'll see a sign back there that talks about, or that shows you her call button, so to speak, on Instagram and Facebook. So make sure you look there. And welcome, Grace. And I just want to charge right in. I want you to tell all the listeners, all the fans of pitch reading #1 and of apps, why your app is different than all the rest and how you came about coming up with NoteQuest.
Well, first of all, Leela, thank you so much for having me and for kind of doing this little discussion tutorial session together, because you definitely have the attention of so many piano teachers, and you have the respect of so many piano teachers out there who are just trying to figure things out, especially in this current pandemic climate. So you've done a lot of wonderful things, and I really admire that. So thank you so much for having me. NoteQuest was really created to solve a problem that I was having. I'm a piano teacher myself, and why don't I go ahead and start sharing my screen? Mm-hmm. You see that there? Oh, no, you don't. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back to that. Share screen.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
All right, so thank you for waiting on me there. So it was really created to solve a problem that I was having. And just like every other teacher out there, we have students who are coming to us, whether they're transfer students or beginners, or even more advanced students who have trouble reading music. And it's just kind of an everyday issue that we have. And when I looked out there to see what was available in the app world, I noticed that there were a couple of things missing, and I thought, I wonder if this is a problem that can be solved. And so that's how that whole journey began. And also the way I, in that process, met Leela and some other very influential teachers at a couple of conferences. And really, I got the energy and the inspiration kind of to start this whole process. Here's a little quote by Dr. Seuss: "The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you will go." And let me put this in presentation mode. And I feel like, this is definitely not meant for music teachers or, musicians per se, but I feel like it is applicable to us because, when we're exposed to music, and the more music we can be exposed to, the more richer our learning experiences is. And it's just, and the ability to read music, it's just a very practical solution for, really any musician. And so I feel like this concept still applies.
Grace, I love that quote. And I think it's the more pieces you'll play as well, because people who only play by ear are always envious of those who can read, because we can grab onto new things. We don't have to memorize if we're going to play. So, oh, I like that quote.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really about expanding our exposure to more music, right? So I think it opens up more options and more doors for musicians. And, on that note, I don't believe we teach music just to, teach to pass exams or whatnot, but it really is to help our students to become more self-sufficient, right? So along that note, I'm going to emphasize that sight reading is a separate skill from learning assigned pieces. And we all assign pieces to our student, and for the most part, it takes up the bulk of the lesson time. But, there's something to be said for really teaching this as a separate skill. And I'm going to get more into that as we go along. That's just my table of contents. I'll also be probably sharing these slides in the future. So there we go. Let's see. Okay, so if you have had a computer over the last 20, 30 years, you're probably familiar with this phrase. When you're having a problem at your computer, inevitably, whoever's helping troubleshoot will say, "Did you reboot?" So I think for a lot of us, we're kind of stuck in the same way of doing things and the same way of teaching. And sometimes it's good for us to just kind of examine, something may not be working. Maybe we can, try some new ideas. And I hope that will open our minds to maybe exploring some new ideas today. Here's a little bit about me. Again, as mentioned, I'm actually a music teacher, musician, and educator first. This is important to me because this gives you the why of why I created NoQuest and why I dreamed it up, to really solve a pedagogical problem. And I don't want to go into each bullet point because you can see all that. But as you can see, I've taught all ages from early childhood to at an arts magnet school, teaching kids who are like mini music majors at a local arts magnet school. But for the most of my career, I've been teaching from a private piano studio, like many of you. So there's that. Back in about May, I asked my followers, what are your top pain points regarding teaching note reading and sight reading? And here's what they said. I get to share it with you. The number one response was not enough time in the lesson. We are already squeezed out with all kinds of, preparing for exams, our method books, theory, ear training. There's all kinds of things. And a lot of teachers admit there's just not enough time. The students don't practice the materials I assign. Does that sound familiar? Sometimes things just get overlooked and it's just a reality. And that's one of the things that NoQuest can help tackle. When you hand out books and flashcards, sometimes they come back damaged or missing. I have a true story of how in 1 week, one student left her flashcards at home, and then another student, my cards came back chewed up by her dog. So it's another thing where going paperless is a great solution.
Indeed.
Here's a big one. It's hard to organize and track sight reading materials for each student. Most of the time, or much of the time, teachers are the ones who hold the sight reading music or the materials or the books in their studio. And not all of us are able to see our students right now. So then that becomes a little bit complicated. Next. Have you heard of ODD, octave displacement disorder? Does this sound familiar? Okay, Susie, which C are you playing again? Is that the correct C? So we'll get into that too. And that all comes with the landmarks. I've heard this complaint so many times when I look at message boards and so forth. I don't know what's going on. They're a whiz on the flashcards and we do note spelling all the time, but they just still can't read music. And there's a reason for that too, and we'll get into that. And lastly, virtual lessons are making it even more difficult to teach beginners. Beginners in particular, are helped by in-person attention where you can kind of be with them. But again, this is very easy to overcome with the right tools.
Well, I'm eager to hear what the right tools are, Grace.
Well, good. You're at the right place, Leela. Okay, so as we already kind of discussed and Leela introduced us today, what kind of brought us together is this kind of cause of using landmark notes. And some teachers out there may not be familiar with using landmark notes. They're still using every good boy deserves fudge or does fine. And those are okay to use, and it's probably the way you and I might have learned to read notes, but it might not be the most efficient solution. Um, we're going to get into showing how that looks in the app. NoteQuest is the only app that does feature landmark notes already built in, so you don't have to build it yourself. One of the things that I'm going to say is we don't want to spend too much time on single notes or note spellers. They might be fun, and there's a lot of cool things out there and cool materials, and I'm not saying don't do it, but we need to really be starting intervals sooner than later, because intervals are what really produce long-term reading fluency. You know, it's kind of similar to kindergartners learning alphabet letters, and they get it really well, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to read phonetically. And so really getting the building blocks to reading is all about what, I was gonna say what intervals are all about is the building blocks of reading fluency. Okay. And this is something that I sort of like to say is that sight reading at its best practice involves three senses: the integration of sight, sound, and touch. And actually the app integrates all three of these three senses. I just pulled up two more there. The sight reading skills that we have improve when you practice both consistently, that means hopefully every day or very regularly, and imperfectly. Now, what do I mean by practicing sight reading imperfectly? You know, when our students learn pieces that you assign, it's probably very normal for them to stop and start again whenever they make a mistake. In the true practice of sight reading, you're really training to have this rhythmic continuity. It's what I call play-through skill. And it's a really specific and very actually sophisticated skill to learn, which takes time. And it takes a lot of restraint and practice to not stop. And along with this, that's closely tied together, is this really important component of building a solid rhythmic foundation. And I understand that Leela, you just finished a whole series on a special rhythm resource, didn't you?
Well, yes, I've done a number of things on rhythm, and I just was on
Yeah.
my rhythm soapbox on a recent podcast. So keep going. I'm supporting you all the way here.
All righty. Yeah. So, so knowing that this app really does focus on pitch recognition, I did want to make sure I underlined how important having rhythmic continuity is, and for also at the same time helping build that foundation of helping them understand pulse and rhythm as we go through. Because you know, really playing the right notes at the wrong time is not going to work, right? So that's another important thing to really kind of build with our students.
So Grace, that slide that you were just on was so good. It had so many good points. And I think one of the takeaways is that I think our students like those little worksheets where they give the right answer. That's a G, that's a B. You know, they like that. But you're right. I don't think they're making the connection when they do those worksheets. And the connection comes when they're on the keyboard seeing a pattern of notes. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So I know we want to pat ourselves on the back when our students can answer a question correctly, but that's just not quite good enough. So thank you for putting this app together, for moving us along.
Yeah, and I think it's normal, because that's actually, it is a good short-term solution, right? But that doesn't really tackle a long-term skill. So here we go. Here's now, I'm just going to dive right into the app and how it's built in terms of the overview. So this is what it looks like when you open the screen. And I have like a little animated intro explainer video, but I guess you guys could just watch that on your own time. So we'll go through that, and let me show you. So the app has two main sections, okay? Note class is the, this was the traditional app that we've had all along, and it's focused on single notes, landmark notes, and intervals. They do respond to you play at the piano, or you can hook it up to your keyboard like Leela does through MIDI. And it even has a virtual piano. Some of the levels are available by virtual piano. So when you're traveling or you're out or you're off bench, virtual piano is a great little solution. And it's got 4 octaves in there.
So let's just review what you mean by that, just in case people aren't clear. So you can put an iPad up on an acoustic piano and play the game, and the student can enter an answer by playing the correct key on the piano, right?
Yes, right.
And my way of using it mostly is with a digital keyboard and earphones. And in
Okay.
order to do that, I need to connect my iPad to my MIDI keyboard. And then I can have my students use this app with headphones. And that's an advantage for me because I have another student in the room. And then what's really nice is students can also enter answers on the screen of an iPad. If they're on vacation or whatever, they can still practice. And that's what you mean by virtual piano. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. So, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So with the MIDI, the other advantage is those teachers who have group piano or they have 2 students at the same time, it allows them to play independently, and it works really well that way. And even piano lab situations, like college classes where they have a group class. So those are the 2 upgrades. It's Note Class Pro, which kind of unlocks all of the levels in Note Class. It also unlocks the interval selector, which has seconds and thirds broken down.
Okay, so can we back up just for a second? I'm sorry. So you can get NoteQuest for free right now. And so it has limited materials or limited drills. And then why are there 2 different upgrades? What do you mean by that?
So I'll show you in a little bit.
Okay.
I have a little video that kind of explains Note Class Pro and then Note Selector, which is the separate in-app purchase. And what Note Selector is basically a level designer. You can actually choose your own notes to practice. And I'll show you how that works through more visuals in a second.
Good.
Okay. Now our new section, which we just released this summer, is called Note Fit. And it's sight reading flashcards that are organized by level. Not only do we have piano, but we also added a couple of beginner levels for strings as well. So we're going to keep expanding that, and hopefully also a couple of woodwinds, because I know a lot of you teachers teach 2 instruments. So this is great because now you have one app and you can use it for 2 different instruments. This is a little bit different in its approach than Note Class because it doesn't hear you play. Instead, you actually hear the app. You can hear it back through this listen function, and I'll show you that as well. We're just kind of doing this as like an overview, so you kind of get the overall picture here. And NoteFit is also priced as a subscription, and the reason why is because we're going to be continuously adding more content so that you never really run out of, sight reading material. Sight reading is sort of unique in that once you've already learned it, you don't really do it again, right? So you just need fresh material, and that's why it's called Note Fit. It's just like a little daily fitness kind of routine, and that's how you get good at it. All right, so now we're gonna go a little bit more, dive into Note Class, and maybe at this point, I can actually screen share. I'm gonna stop sharing here, and I'll screen share directly from my iPad. How about that? Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'll just explain to those who are watching, Grace is going to share her iPad over Zoom with her cable from her iPad charger. So this thing right here called a lightning cable, and then she just plugged the USB end into her Mac computer and then is choosing what again? I know we're going to share a screenshot too, but you got to choose your iPad. Is that correct?
Yes. So do you want me to pull up that? Actually, let me stop sharing this and I'll share screen again. And I'll show you a screenshot. Do you see that, Leela?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the screen you're going to see when you select, when you want to share screen. You get these options, and I just selected iPhone, iPad via cable. That's it.
Nice.
All right, I'll take that away, and I will go back to this. stop share. Now I'm going to go back and I'll do exactly what we just went through. Just share screen, iPad via cable. And it takes a couple seconds for it to talk to each other.
There it is.
Okay, here we are. So here's our screen, Note Class and Note Fit. And so we're going to start with Note Class. And as we mentioned, we have these options. Real piano or MIDI are both accessed through the same button. And if you connect it, it just automatically knows it's there. Here's virtual piano, and I will go through virtual piano because I'm not at a piano right now. And the first thing you see is this little pop-up tutorial called Landmark Notes. And it kind of explains to those who are new to Landmark Notes. And you can kind of go through it. And this is part of the free download. I will have to note that a couple of these names are adopted from Leela's resources, such as the name High G for outer space G, and she names basement F as that low F. And I'm happy to say that we just recently added those two landmarks to top off this tutorial. And then, of course, after this, you just want to play, right? So you click play now, and then you go into landmark notes, and here's our selections. And I'm going to just do the 3 C's so you can see. And here you go. I also, okay, so I'm just going to play this. And as you can see, I'm scrolling up and down the keyboard. Obviously, Jane was a little too slow, so she wants to do it again. They're just really quick 15-second drills is what it is. And here's the cool thing. If you're really lost, you can just click that hit button and the right key will show up on your keyboard. So it's a good way to also learn as well as reinforce and drill.
Well,
all right.
And to your point about that hint, it's really important actually. That studies have shown that having immediate feedback is so important for learning. And so that's what's nice is if you get it wrong, a lot of students won't know, well, why did I get it wrong? But when you've got that hint right there and you get the right answer, that's all good because pretty soon they will remember. So I think that's a really
right. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to note is that for all these levels, there's a stats button up here, and it's like your own little leaderboard. And this is true to the app. So the other thing that's cool about NoQuest is that there's no login and password process. It's all localized to that device. So if this is your studio iPad, you can actually see all your students and how they have done on your score stats. Nice. If the student is being assigned to practice it at home, and let's say I'm Jane here, and this is my 3 C's level for landmarks, and my top points is 8 points. I want to send it to my mom. So I'm going to just swipe on the left here, and then I can just click on that email, and it'll email a copy of that stats to my teacher or my mom or whatever I want to do. Nice. And you can kind of erase it and start again. There's a separate stats for NoteFit, which I'll get into later. All right, and Landmark Note Mix basically has a combination of all of the landmarks you've just learned and reinforces them all together there. Note Class, this really should be called Note Class Pro now. And so here's all the 5 levels that are in there. During the pandemic, I opened up level 1 as a part of the free download, and I never took it back. So it's still available for you as kind of like my little freebie. And so here, when you click on that little 3 dots, it'll show you what's included in each level. So Rising Star has basically a 2-octave range on white keys. Then starting level 3, you've got 2-stepper. And this is where it introduces 2-note intervals to really enforce that interval thing. And again, there's a timer on these. And as you play, let me show you. Let's say you don't want to be confined to a timer. You just click on the timer and then it goes away. Then it's just indefinite. You just keep playing. And again, here's the hint button, and see what happens to that when you press the hint button. And it doesn't dock you any points for pressing the hint button, but it just costs you time. So that, all kind of builds in there. All right, now what you were asking, Leela, what's the note selector? The note selector again was the self-customization level for NoteQuest. So here, what I want to do is I'm going to create a new level. You can create your own drills. You just tap on the notes that you want to drill below, and magically it appears above on the staff. So this is also a good way to just kind of in real time see that note, see that pitch to staff recognition, you know? So let's say I want to do A major pentascale, and I want my student Susie to learn this and drill it this week. See there, it just automatically shows up.
Wow.
Okay. Now, if I want to go, oops, I want to do a different one. So I'm just going to press these again and it erases right away. Let's say I want to do F major pentascale. So then I select flat at the top. So then it's going to be the flat keys. And you know what else this also does? This is also an excellent lesson in harmonic accidentals, right? So, you know, you can have this A sharp, and you always have those students going, why do they have an A sharp and a B flat? And through this process, you can explain in a scale concept, you know, why there are flats and why there are sharps, you know? And so then what I do is, let's say I want to save this, you can save it, and it'll always be there for you when you need it, like even for your next student or whatnot. So now I just select the level that I want, and I've just put in F major, and it will give me F major drills. All right. So that's it.
I did not know that. That's like, that is cool. Yay. I'm having all my students work on their 5-finger patterns, or my younger ones. So I'm going to be diving into that.
The other thing you can do is, I also have it already saved in my other device, is, you know, line notes and space notes. So if I want to set this up, you can do this for like 1 minute before your student shows up to their lesson. And you already know you want them to do line notes that day. So just set that up as line notes, you know, and it's there for you, right? And look how quickly that happened. Here's now, so that's the note selector. We didn't go through the interval selector, but it kind of works the same way. I think Leela's done this with her students and their off-bench time. The way the interval selector is set up is that you can customize seconds only in the drills or thirds only, because oftentimes these are the main intervals that students have trouble with the most, with the visual discrimination, kind of seeing those steps and skips. And the way it's structured is that it always starts with landmark notes. So they're connected to landmark notes in the beginning. And then halfway through, what happens is after the landmark notes have been a little exhausted, then it starts opening up other notes, other starting pitches, is what I mean. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I so appreciate this is the sequential way that you're working through all of this. It's not random. And I think that is the downfall of a lot of drills that we end up giving students, is that it's very random. And so they don't have anything to connect to. So if you're connecting to those landmarks, to the ones that they know already, and then move from them, it's just going to give them that much more confidence.
Exactly. And even when we get into NoteFit, the way NoteFit is structured, it all goes back down to landmarks as well. So we always start from that basis of landmarks in this app. All right, so now we're going to go into, how about NoteFit? So in NoteFit, as mentioned, you can choose your instrument and go into this. Primer is the first set, and this first level A, part of the primer level, is a free download as well. What you'll see is this is an example of level A, and this is sequential, as kind of you were mentioning. Now this is a little different from Note class in that the flashcards have a static kind of sequence to them. So it's not, the drills aren't random. The drills are all page numbered, so that when you're working with a student, you can actually assign, I want you to do numbers 1 through 10 this week. And then, or if you're doing lessons virtually, you can go on at the same time and you're looking at the same thing at the same time. So here's what I mean. Okay, so again, here we are at the very first card of level A. And they're all four stemless, rhythmless pitches. I mean, I know they're written as whole notes, but the whole point of this is just to get them situated with stemless reading and directional reading. So once they try this at the piano with or without you, this is different in that instead of it knowing what you played, you click on listen button and they can check by ear. And then what you do is you ask them this, you point it back to them and say, did that sound correct to you? Is that what you played? And sometimes they're going to, most likely they're going to say, ooh, that's not what I played. And then they'll self-correct. So in a way, you're really facilitating self-learning and, kind of them owning their own process by using their ears.
I love that option. I think that's brilliant. And it's because we read with our ears as well. And, I would even suggest having them imagine what that sounds like before they play it. Can they hear it? Using
Absolutely.
that audiation.
I'm a big proponent of singing too. And so these actually make for great sight singing activities as well. And I think you and I agree, like the whole audiation and singing and imagining how it sounds, it all really ties in. And that ties into the value of, how sight reading is by sight, sound, and touch, right? So here we go. Now what you'll notice is that even on the same pitch of middle C, I change up the fingerings so we don't get locked into a certain fingering like middle C position or whatever, because that can become a crutch for many students. And so we change it around, right? And so these are just very basic. See here, when you see something in parentheses, it's a suggestion to try a different fingering on the same exercise. At the top right, you're going to see a tiny flag. And if you see that you're having trouble with that one and you want to review it later, you can just tap that flag and just review your flagged exercises later at the end. Nice. So there's that. So it kind of goes in from middle C on the treble clef. Now we have middle C on the bass clef, right? And then we have G, treble G. So it has a very sequential progression on how they're structured. And by level C, you've covered all the same landmarks that we also had in no class that we just saw today. Here's how beginner level works. So it looks like this. There's your preview. And it's mostly seconds. And so we have now 4 measure, very basic rhythm included here. And so what I will do, and there's different ways of doing this, is first I'll go through all the different steps of what you do when you look at a sight reading activity. You study the rhythm first, you kind of have the pulse in your head. And then the next thing I have them do is, where are your hands located? Are there any position changes? And in level 1, there won't be any position changes. They're all in a 5-finger pattern of some kind. And then, in the later levels, you have accidental, so you study that as well. And then the last step is details, such as dynamics and so forth. So I'll show you this. Let's say they played through it one time on their own and they're ready to play along with the click track. So you just tap on the screen, any spot, and this will pop up. And you're ready to start. So that gives you a little countdown and I'm playing along, if you can imagine. And then once you're done, you can actually try again if you mess up, and you can try it again. And then you listen back to see, again, if you played it correctly. The other thing you can do is you can play along at the same time, as if your teacher's playing along.
Grace, I was thinking that this could be a really fun group lesson game, especially if you're online, sharing the screen like you're doing right now. Unmute one student and have them play it, and then everyone else play it, and then, and then was he right or was he wrong? That kind of thing. So you're using your ear and your eyes at the same time. I think that's
a great idea. Yeah, I would totally do that. The other thing you can do is tap the screen, and let's say it's just too fast, you can slow it down, or you can speed it up. So, it'll play back at that tempo that you choose. All right, so that's that. I'll just kind of quickly show you level 2, what it looks like. So it's more of the same. Now we have some more thirds. So it's gradually increasing the intervals. And now we have a few more different rests, and it just gets a little bit more, more thinking. A couple of dynamics are now included. I have these little tips for beginning sight readers, because a lot of times they'll start and they'll go, oh no, I don't have my right hand ready. So I have those little tips here. So it goes through, and then here's level 3. It's the beginning of thirds and fourths and some sharps and flats now, and some eighth notes as well.
Okay, I just had another idea. I would do
What?
in a group lesson on Zoom, or with a private lesson as well, is maybe I play the example and the student decides, did I play it correctly, or where did I make mistakes, or whatever. That could be.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love that. And I'm going to show you also what also works for this. If you have some more advanced students who maybe level 2 is obviously too easy for them, what I do is I use this as transposing activities.
Nice.
So for them, I'll say, hey, play this in D major, and then they do that. The other kind of creative thing I love to do with it is have them add a harmony to the bass. Because a lot of the early exercises in level 1 and 2 are just one hand or one staff. So I say, hey, why don't you add another part on, the treble clef, or add the bass clef part. And they're also great composition starters. I can totally see you doing something with that.
Well, okay, I had one other idea.
Okay.
Which measure did I play?
Oh.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
I just know that I'm thinking these things because I've talked to a group teacher who is struggling because her students aren't showing up. She's all online. Her students aren't showing up with their music. And so, and I don't know how she delivers the music, but they don't have it when they should at the lesson. So these would all be fantastic reading samples to practice reading when students do not have their music like they should.
Yeah, that does happen. I just thought of another idea, Leela. Okay. In a group situation, or like 2 or more students,
yeah,
you can even do it's kind of like pass the potato kind of thing, yes. Where they have to, while the click track's going, they play one measure each. So while taking turns. So Sue has measure 1, Bob has measure 2, and so they have to also keep time that way too. It's kind of like an ensemble situation where you got to be ready to go.
Yeah. Now that wouldn't work so well online, but everybody could take a turn, but we'd probably drop some beats between the students. But yeah.
You know what? That's true. Yeah. I think that would happen best in a live group piano type class. Yeah.
But we will be back in person someday. We will.
Yes. 2021 is our year.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to show you the advanced level, which is right now the most advanced level. Now this, instead of 4 measure phrases, now we have 8 measure selections. And what's kind of fun about this is I pulled in a couple of friends. Paula Dreyer writes a series of rote books called Little Gems, and she's a marvelous improviser, and she's actually also putting on a creative pianist conference coming up, and you're involved in it, aren't you?
That she is. Yeah. Good job on putting a plug in there.
Yeah. So I've got quite a few of her selections in here. She was kind enough to let us put some excerpts, and and also they're great for students who play these excerpts and go, hey, I really like this, I want more. So then they dig in to get the full books. So instead of learning 8 measures of the piece, you get to learn the full piece. So it's also a great way for me to kind of promote composers as well. So I hope to add more composers to this lineup. So here we go. Here's Dream Waves, and this is from her Little Gems rote pieces, and this is sort of what it sounds like. Sorry, I'm going to talk over the music here.
Yeah.
All the pieces in level 5 pretty much are based on patterns. And so I believe patterns are just so important when we're, kind of learning sight reading and learning how to distinguish, oh, I see that there's a pattern of fourths and fifths or certain motives. So it's very motivic when you see a lot of the selections that I've made here. A couple of them are just ones that I wrote. And then you'll also find, see here, there's like little prompts to do additional activities. after you play this, can you play this in major mode?
Nice.
And then here's transposing challenge. After you play it, then try it in another key, you know, so those are all optional. We have blues, we have different styles of music. There's another kind of a well-known app out there for sight reading, and it's a little bit of a different approach where all of the exercises are randomized by like a computer. And so you're playing it's just random notes on the page. And although that would really secure someone's sight reading, I think if they did it well, but I think that the experience wouldn't be as fun or fulfilling when the sounds just don't sound very good. And so what I really wanted to value in this app was the use of real music, real composed music. And so that's what you're going to find, even at the younger levels of the app.
I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no
And the
random
other
music.
thing sorry, I'm not trying to talk over you, but the other thing that I really like is the idea of patterns, because that's how they begin to read better, is by seeing this, what's the same and what's different. And you can't do that when everything is so different all the time.
Right, right. So then it just becomes abstract notes, and that's not even real music, right? We musicians don't sit there and play 12 tone every day, you know? So, so that's part of that here. And you can just see how it's structured. And I hope to add more exercises here in the future too.
This is great because it's getting pretty advanced, at least for my students, you know, that the hands together, the contrapuntal movement between both hands, very good material for advancing students too.
Great. And so now I'm going to go into how the kind of the fun part, the motivating factor for this. We also have a stats page, and the way we value, remember earlier I talked about NoteFit valuing consistency over perfection. Yes. So what happens is when you play NoteFit, the app knows when you've been playing for 8 minutes. So after 8 minutes, you get this pop-up of a certificate and this little cute little melody, and it'll say you earned a badge. Now I'm going to stop screen sharing because I haven't earned a badge. So I have to show you a still image.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're gonna share screen again on desktop. And I'm gonna have to fast forward here through some of our, are you seeing that?
Yes, yep.
Okay. So I've already gone through these with you guys. So here is, you can win prizes actually by playing NoteFit. So whenever you've played for 8 minutes in one day, you get this certificate right here. And you've earned a badge, and it's recorded in the stats portion. You can tap here to play your flagged cards again. Remember I showed you how to flag the cards. Mm-hmm. And then after you've earned 5 badges in a 7-day period, and you can't earn more than 1 badge a day, by the way, then you get to unlock a prize. And there's a lineup of about 6 prizes right now. And the prizes range from coloring sheets and mazes and musical activities to sheet music. So you can actually unlock free sheet music. One is by Dennis Alexander called The Last Dance. And then there's another one in there which for a little bit more older students or more mature students, there's a fun Pockable Canon theme and variations that I arranged, and we put it in there. And so every time you unlock a prize, you can actually, you know, choose a different prize. So hopefully you don't run out. And that's it. So how about, let me see if I can do, I've actually embedded more videos, but I think I've shown most of this to you live here.
And sometimes the videos don't have the best transfer over Zoom like we'd like, but yes, we'll make sure that all of these are shared at some point with everyone who's watching the video. Probably, you know, we'll put this on YouTube and then we'll have all the links there for them.
Great, that's perfect.
I think I need a recap though. So first of all, we're talking about the app called NoteQuest, or maybe you're going to go through this, and then it's divided into 2 parts called NoteFit and NoteClass and NoteFit. Okay, so we just looked at NoteFit.
Right, so that was the new section, NoteFit.
Right. So
That's
it's kind
really
of
nice.
checking for me to help myself get my brain around this. The note class, you're taking a class, you're reviewing, you're getting reinforcement on recognizing the pitches, and now you're checking your fitness, your pitch fitness, by moving into the note fit section.
Right. So you're just expanding what you've already kind of gained in note class and note fit.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
honestly, you can play them uh, at the same level of learning too, because note fit is also designed for the beginner.
Hmm.
Remember, we valued to introduce intervals sooner than later.
Yes.
So note fit just expands on that interval training, so it's really not too late or not too early to start,
Mm-hmm.
even when you're a beginner. So let me see, I went over these and then I wanted to show, we already talked about that. Um, if for those teachers who really like to organize and track all of their students' progress, it's not for everybody, but I know certain teachers really like to track this for their own, um, for the way they set up their studio. There's assignment trackers, and it's also like a syllabus for the app. So it kind of shows you what's included in each level. I have one for note class, and then I also have one for note fit. It's just not on this screen. And this is all available on the website, notequest.net. And the last thing I wanted to highlight was the release of our PDF format flashcards. So what these are, the same flashcards that you just saw in NoteFit, the app, in PDF format. So it actually makes it a little easier and low tech for screen sharing. When you're screen sharing for lessons, or even certain teachers who don't want to also, always break out apps during the lesson, then they can actually, use the PDF format cards. And this is sort of what it looks like in a PDF format. So let's
Right.
say you have a student who doesn't even have an Apple device, but you want them to, drill these flashcards. This is the way you do it. You have them get the flashcards in PDF. And there you go.
Very nice. And I also appreciate, I was going to go back, I like how you start with stemless note values first, because stems add in a whole complexity that a lot of early students shouldn't be dealing with at first in some ways. Especially I know from my daughter-in-law who does teach preschool, recognizing a B versus a D, with the stems going up or down, or
Yeah.
on which side they are, that can be so confusing. And so starting with just, is it a line or a space note? And then is it, your landmark note, middle C, or is it the one above? All those kind of things. I just really appreciate all the time and effort you've put into thinking through how you were going to approach all of this.
Well, thank you for appreciating it.
Yes. Now, the assignment
I
tracker,
think I've covered it all.
I have a question about the assignment tracker. Is that, so each student has a sheet like that, or does the teacher use that for the entire class? How is that assignment tracker used?
I think it's best used with the teacher holding it, and when the students complete it, they can actually, well, I also use Tonara, so you can share this PDF through Tonara, or you could just do it through a Google Docs or email, and they can either have it as a part of their assignment folder, or the teacher can hold it in their own kind of binder situation.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they show up and they've passed those levels, then they can mark it here. So there's usually one sheet per student.
Okay. And then because we both use Tonara, let's just go there a minute. How are you using your app, NoteQuest, in Tonara?
Okay, so so what I did, actually, Luann Pope, I have to share this with you guys. So for all of Leela's, people watching this, I'm going to include these links for you. There's a video that Luann graciously did for two of her students, video demoing this app, and they actually focused on NoteFit. And I love how she does it. I'd love to show you video, but I think I don't want to, run out of time. But definitely watch this video because she shows how she assigns. But when I assign, I just assign, I put it in the assignments. There's actually an option for sight reading. And so I pull down the menu within Tonara for sight reading. Um, Luann also shows how she does it. I don't know how the video will show up, but we could try here. I'm going to fast forward to where she shows how she puts in her assignments.
Welcome to my Tonara studio. This is my desktop version. What you see on the left side is my table of contents. Here's a list of my students, and going to show you how I created an assignment right inside Tonara. So to create an assignment, you can either upload from the repertoire, which is something that I've already saved, or I could create a new assignment. And rather than you actually watching me type, which can be a little stressful, I'm going to show you what I've already typed in. And what you'll see here with this edit button of this assignment is exactly the template that I typed onto. So I added the name of the assignment, which was Note Quest, Note Fit. I might even say level 3 on here.
And Grace, is this assuming that the student has Note Fit at home or Note Quest at home?
Yeah, it does. It assumes that they either have the app or they have the PDF cards.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just stop it right there. And honestly, she goes into a lot of detail, and I don't even do that because when I'm at the lesson, I don't really go through all these. I don't fill in every box. I just say in the assignment, do level 3, number 10, and that's what I do. And so, yeah.
It would be a big advantage to load everything in to Tonara the exact way you want it, and then just choose the assignment. I could see, taking a half a day doing that.
I think that would be very, very helpful to save time.
It would. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, people have asked that to me before. If I talk about Tonara, they'll often ask, well, do I need Tonara in order to use NoteQuest or whatever? And that's absolutely not true. This is because we both like to use Tonara. We always are fascinated by how everyone uses Tonara to deliver an assignment to a student. So thank you for sharing that.
Right. Sure. I think, hopefully that, this little presentation was helpful for those who, I know I've had a lot more emails coming in from teachers going, how do I use this? How do I maximize this? I'm a little lost. So I hope that this kind of helped them clarify, how it's structured.
Well, it really did for me as well, Grace, because I got to be honest, I would read what you all have, but a video is worth 10,000 words. There's just something about it that, oh, I see. Okay. And then you pointed out all these little clever additions, saving things, all those kind of things that we can try and figure out, but seeing the expert show us really does help. So man, this has just been fabulous. Congratulations on, number one, such hard work. I know I can see that there's been a lot of hard work put into this. And also congratulations for getting it out there. I know you've worked hard on it and it's taken a long time.
Thank you, Leila. I really appreciate that. I mean, there were times where I felt like I was just, swimming upstream constantly, but it's very rewarding, and I've learned so much along the way, honestly. And even having the support of and feedback from teachers like you, it's been monumental, because all of the changes and new features and changes that we've done have been fueled by feedback from people like you. And so that's really the engine behind what I'm doing. So thank you.
Well, thanks for putting out a great app and being versatile enough to see the power behind a PDF for those who don't want to use the app or can't for some reason. So I appreciate all your efforts, and I know a lot of teachers are going to feel the same way. So thanks so much for joining me today, Grace.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love talking with you and chatting with you.
Yes, and for those who are watching this video, make sure that you check the show notes that will go with this, because we'll add all the links to how to find the app and maybe even some special codes that they can use and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned and be looking for those very soon.